Here this afternoon on CBS Sports HQ, Chris Hassel, Jordan Giorgio, and Ran Carthon with you. Had a couple of big news stories today. One of them in the NFL involving a 3-0 team losing a superstar. We're going to have much more on that in just a bit, but we're going to start with the winless teams here today.
Yeah, week 3 of the NFL season now in the rearview mirror, and it's not looking good for a handful of teams who have started 0-3 this season. That includes the Dolphins, Jets, Texans, Titans, Giants, and Saints. Now, you guys, history not on these teams' side in terms of their chances of going on to make the playoffs after starting the season 0-3. All of these teams have just a 2.4% of reaching the postseason. And if you're wondering the last team to actually do it, 2018 Houston Texans, a team that is unfortunately, surprisingly, in a similar position just 7 years later. It's now time for our Player Spotlight presented by Auto Trader, powered by Auto Intelligence. Unfortunately, not a good spotlight, and it's time for Brian Daboll and company to face the harsh reality of what to do with Giants quarterback Russell Wilson after Sunday night's 22-9 loss to the Chiefs. There are some real questions to ask. Here's more from Daboll on a possible quarterback change earlier today.
We'll have staff meetings after this, but when we come in, we watch the tape, offense, defense, kicking game as a staff. And then we go meet with the players. That's where we're at right now.
We say what you normally do. Most Monday afternoons, you know who your quarterback's going to be the upcoming week if everyone's healthy, though. It just seems a little different, your responses.
Yeah. Well, look, we're going through the tape right now. We're evaluating everything.
So quarterback change is on the table.
I'd say we're evaluating everything.
All right, so no solid answer there, but evaluating everything, so that's a good start. Let's go ahead and bring in DK, Danny Kanell, into the conversation here. Danny, I'll come to you first on this one. If Daboll wants to save his job, is it time to bench Russell Wilson?
Jordan, first of all, was this Boney's idea, our producer, to come out here? Just like there's great stories, and we're out here just basement dwellers. I mean, come on, we're trying to fire coaches already. But since we are doing the segment, since you asked the question, this is one where, unfortunately, if you're a Giants fan, you have to trust the coaching staff. And that can be the hardest thing to do, especially when I'm sure a lot of those fans have been pounding the table saying, we need to make a change. We need to make a change. Is Jackson Dart ready? And I know he looked really good in the preseason, but the preseason and the regular season are entirely different ball games as far as your preparation, your planning, you're learning an entire new system week by week by week. And I would say maybe more importantly, you're facing defenses that are going to look entirely different and more complex than what you faced in the preseason. So it's all about getting Jackson Dart to a place where he's comfortable. So for the first 3 weeks, I'm sure he's been going through the prep. There's probably sprinkling him in with some reps at practice. Maybe he's getting a more significant portion of the workload. And that's for them to decide. Do we think he's ready? At some point, I do think you just break the glass. I wouldn't be surprised, and Ran and I were in studio after their 0-1 start, and I thought 1 month into the season would be enough to give Russell Wilson and kind of see how it goes. And if that's kind of my hunch. Now, nothing would surprise me. It's been bad. But if they say, all right, Russ, this is your last chance. It's at home. You need to play better, and we need to win, or else we're going to turn to the rookie. Because 0-4, it's almost unacceptable. You look at it, you're completely out of the playoff race. Then you've got a game on the road. You've got against the Saints, which is a winnable game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they wait one more week, maybe split the reps 50-50 at practice for Jackson Dart. But ultimately, it feels like it's inevitable that Jackson Dart's time is coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and after this Chargers game, it is the Saints, maybe the worst team in all of football. Ran, when do you think they should make this move?
I think at earliest, like Danny said, is week 5 against the Saints because it is a winnable game. And you're talking about building the confidence of a young quarterback. Here's what I'll say. They have sprinkled him in throughout the preseason as well as the regular season where they've given him reps with the first team offense. However, they haven't allowed him to throw a pass. To me, says something, right, in terms of how they view him right now. There's plenty for him to be for you to be excited about in terms of the future. However, right now they need to focus on the present and find a way to win games with Russell Wilson or whomever, because like we talked about and Danny alluded to us being on air together after the week 1 loss, at that point it was like, who else are you throwing to besides Malik Neighbors? And so it didn't matter if it was Russell Wilson or if it was Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston. This team still needs weapons. And they just lost Tyrone Tracy yesterday. He banged up his shoulders, appeared to be a dislocated shoulder. And the physicality, and the nature in which Cam Scatterbo runs, how long are you going to have him? Someone else outside of Malik Neighbors is going to need to step up to help either one of these quarterbacks out.
I'm guessing there are a lot of Giants fans who are not surprised that the Giants are 0-3. A lot of Titans fans not surprised they're 0-3. Go on down the list. But then you get to the Texans. And it's the ineptitude of that offense. Ran, they are the worst offense in football in terms of points per game. They are averaging fewer than 13 points per game. How do you make sense of it?
I mean, I don't know how you make sense of it, especially with the makeup of this team and what this team has shown offensively. Coming into the week, they were ranked in the bottom third in 8 offensive categories, which should not happen. And you mentioned it. This defense has been playing lights out. This defense, the most points they've given up is 20. And you would typically think a team that has given up 20 points or less, you would think that the offense with the makeup of this Houston Texans team is able to make plays and enough plays to win them games. So the problem that you're having right now with this Houston Texans team is the shuffling of the offensive line up front, because they've had numerous offensive line groups that have started. And then who is the other threat at wide receiver? They are missing that vertical threat in this offense that makes it go. And you think of vertical threat and you think of the explosive down the field play. And yes, that's a part of it. But however, this opens up the intermediate passing game and stretches the field horizontally and gives you those throwing windows. And this running game. Nick Chubb, love Nick Chubb to death, love the man he is, love the player he is, but he's not the same Nick Chubb. And Woody Marks has provided a little spark, but there has not been enough in terms of the running game to help boost this Houston Texans offense.
Those Texans will play, Danny, another 0-3 team next week in Houston as they see the Titans. They will be hosting them. A loser will be 0-4 at the end of the day. Who do you trust more?
I trust the Texans because of the experience at quarterback with C.J. Stroud, and I know it hasn't been great, but I do look at the Titans, and I think they're a team that's really struggling right now, obviously. And, it's almost become, in some of these organizations and some of these fan bases more particular, they almost become so toxic around a player. Like, I've played on some bad teams, and there's no worse feeling than when your own fan base is booing you in your backyard. So I just look at this team, and I think there's a commonality in a lot of these teams. One, they're not running the football really well. You've got a rookie quarterback trying to catch up as fast as he can, trying to get used to the speed of the game. And I actually think Cam Ward has shown a lot of flashes of brilliance early here this season, but they haven't been able to give him a rush game to try to, assist in that. And I do think it's time for maybe Brian Callahan to evaluate the play calling duties. I know that's something that's been kicked around and discussed. Maybe you just need to do that in order to save your job, potentially, because what he's been doing hasn't been working. Do they try something? It feels like it, because the 3-17 start, it's 6th worst that we've ever seen in the history of NFL for a head coach through that same time period. So I feel like maybe if you shake things up, let somebody else call the plays, see if you can step back, be more of the kind of manager, CEO type from the sidelines. But, man, it does feel like it's really tough sledding in there for Tennessee right now.
And they're going to be on the road for a while. Not only are they going to Houston this week, then they go to Arizona, then they go to Las Vegas. But Danny mentioned the booing fans. Maybe it's good to get out of Tennessee. Let's move on to the Jets. And man, they've had a couple really close calls, Ran, and maybe the best coach celebration that I've seen all season with Aaron Glenn on that blocked field goal for a touchdown. How close are they from getting over the hump?
Now listen, after week 1, Aaron Glenn said no moral victories, right? He was, and if you know Aaron Glenn, that is the man he is. That is his makeup. But if you noticed him leaving the field yesterday after the game was over, he was clapping, because I truly believe he feels his team is close. And they're in these ball games. But as is with a team with a new regime and a bunch of players that are learning a new way of doing things, you have to learn how to not lose games, because they make the great play. Will McDonald IV, he blocks the field goal, and then he's able to scoop and score and put them ahead. But then you look at the clock and you're like, there's 1 minute and 30 seconds left. And you got Baker Mayfield at home wearing the creamsicle uniforms. You got to feel like some magic is possible. And then you have the young guys like Emeka Egbuka step up, and then the old man Sterling Shepard makes a play that gets them in field goal range, and then Chase McLaughlin knocks it in. But this team is close. This team is really close, and they just have to find their identity on offense. And because the offense is going to look different, when Justin Fields is back versus what Tyrod Taylor is running. And so they just got to find their identity and get this right mix and learn to play complementary football and learn how to close out these games.
Monday Night Football next week, we'll see those Jets and the Dolphins, and maybe this Dolphins team is just kind of what the doctor ordered for a struggling Jets team in year one of Aaron Glenn. On the flip side, though, Danny, what do you make of what you've seen thus far from Miami?
Well, the good news is it's been better since the week 1 debacle against the Colts. The bad news is it still hasn't resulted in a win in the win column. And this one, and notice with all these, I'm not one that's quick to fire a coach, but I do feel like if you don't win this game at home in your backyard against a New York Jets team with Aaron Glenn at the helm and a young quarterback who's getting better, but a divisional game where you're favored, I do think it might be time to just clean house. This team still, they're not that mentally tough. When they get down, it feels like they can't come back. I worry about Tua and his development, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout his career, and I wonder how much that impacts play calling from a play caller standpoint, because they're so worried about getting the ball out of his hand, which he does quickly most of the time, but that's not really a way to survive in today's NFL. Look at all the other quarterbacks who are able to go out and make plays with their legs because you're not that worried about it. So I think this is one game that's probably that I would circle of all these and say if the Dolphins come up short here, they might do something drastic to sort of wake up a locker room, because I don't know if that locker room fears or respects Mike McDaniel the way that you should in a healthy way. We've talked a lot about his player-friendly nature, the post-game pressers. We get it. They're fun and they're quirky when they're winning, but they're really weird and concerning when you're losing, and that's the side I would err on. So if they lose this game against the Jets at home, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins go ahead and make that drastic move.
There are 6 0-3 teams heading into week 4. 4 of them play each other. You just mentioned the Dolphins and the Jets. It's the Titans and the Texans. The poor Saints, though. The poor Saints. You just gave up 44 on the road at Seattle, and now you're a 3-score underdog against the Buffalo Bills. Is this a spot at all where you would want to put in a rookie quarterback?
I mean, at this point, you know what you're going to get out of Spencer Rattler. We saw that show last year. We've seen it through the first 3 weeks of the season. And let's give Spencer his flowers. He has not played particularly bad. He is not the reason why this team isn't winning. But you're going against the Buffalo Bills, right? And the Buffalo Bills are a stacked roster. They are a really good roster. But you talk about schematically and what they run on defense, it's not all that complicated. It's a heavy zone system, and they generally don't bring a ton of pressure, which should help a young quarterback in Tyler Shuck if they want to make the move and go to him. Is he's not going to see a Brian Flores defense that's going to be multiple in the terms of the looks and the coverage and the things that you're going to get, which is also why you would consider starting Jackson Dart, against a Saints type team. But anyway, what you want to do here if you're the Saints is why not? This team needs a lift. You have a ton of aging veterans on this team that really don't deserve to be in this type of situation. The Demario Davises, the Cameron, what's Cameron? I'm blanking on his last name. Cameron Jordan. And so you really want to just give these guys something to play for, and maybe inserting a young Tyler Shuck will be a little bit of a lift for this team.
Yeah, Rattler not bad, but 0-9 in his career as a starter. Not great there. We'll see you guys who is able to get kind of back on track week 4 of the NFL season. Great conversation there. We've got you covered with all the latest NFL news. A lot going on across the league today. The best highlights and scores, of course, right here on CBS Sports HQ. It's all here and it's all free.